Good afternoon. Welcome to Two Gents Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Ron Spikes on Two Gents. As we get out here all the time, I guess I just like getting the information out on the air as soon as I get it, because sometimes I'm traveling and I'm going about and I hear stuff and you try to change people's minds, or not really change people's minds, but give them a open perspective of what's going on in the world today. And it's not always easy, because a lot of people take things that they hear and things they hear stuff and they don't really want to hear it, even though it's the truth. They really don't want to hear it. And as they continue through their thing, their path, and they get in community groups, they share information with each other, and a lot of times they haven't did their research, and they never start off with this is how I feel. This is not really the truth. This is how I feel. And a lot of times feelings, just think if two or three people went out there and felt the same way that you did, and they went out on there and they basically just took the half-cocked truth and ran with it, we would have a problem with it. We would have a problem with it, because we're not built like that. Sometimes people hear stuff and they go in groups, and just to make themselves feel good, they start talking. They start talking. And I want to tell you what got me. Yesterday, I was driving in my truck, going to a location, and I heard a national media host. This was political. I think that's what it's called. On one of those channels that I listen to on, I got my hand in front of the mic. But one of those channels that I listen to on when I'm traveling in my truck from Sirius Radio. And as I listened to him talk, his whole show was about he changed his mind on the Biden's pardons of the people that he did. He had a legitimate reason why he did it. But the part that got me the most was that when he said something like, I know that I can change my mind. I know I can do this. And I kept on hearing the narrative of people calling in saying that, what Biden did, he really didn't lie. He just basically when he just changed his mind. When you follow people, when you listen to people, and especially when you hear it on national media and somebody says, you know what, that's not really a lie. But if I get on here and I say something and it happens to make it out there, it'll travel faster than any truth out there that Ron was lying. And one of the things I did was I wanted to be one of them people that call in. And when his little teleprompter came up, I was waiting and waiting and waiting. So throughout the whole show, he was trying to cover up a lie. He was trying to cover up a lie. So when the little producer came on, the first thing he said, what do you want to talk about? I said, when does a lie become a lie? When does a lie become a lie? Because we're running away from the truth so much. We're allowing lies to be told, or we'll lie ourselves and then change it to something else. And or hear something else, and we find out that it's not true. That was a lie that we told. And I don't never want to get, I don't, if I say something, I can come back and correct it. Now, first thing that you should say is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If I offended you in any kind of way, I'm sorry I misled you. I'm sorry I didn't have enough information to go with. People understand that. Because you can later go down the road and get more information. But that lie that you told is still a lie. I don't know how we teach our kids if our kids came to us with that same thing. not in the same scenario, but if they told us a lie and it's still a lie, we hold them accountable for it. As adults, we gotta hold each other accountable for the lies that we tell. And if I tell you a lie and you hear about it later, or you hear something different, don't go back to your source. Come to me. Come to me. I think that's the problem wrong. That's what's going on in the world today. People tell a lie over here, and they'll tell a lie over there, and they'll tell a lie back here. Then when the people have a problem with it, they don't come back to the source. Because if you had a problem with what they said that you didn't like the source, and they told you where it came from, come back to me. And we got to be big enough to own up to it. It doesn't make us any better or any less than anybody else. But when you can stand up on your own word, you don't have to worry about what's going on in the world. You can say your truth. So many times when I get on this radio, you hear Byron Glass say, "You know what, Ron? I'm gonna tell you how I feel." Pastor Regan's the same way. He'll tell you how he feels. And you've got to be able to have that conversation, because unless you have that conversation, you're part of the problem, because you're allowing it to fester. You're allowing it to go on. But that's not why I came here today. Well, that's why I want to tell you about the truth. What I came here today was share some of my truths not my truths, but share some truths with you on how you can go about getting some information. And all the time, it may not be the information that you want to hear. Some people out there, we don't want to hear no information. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's true or not. We don't want to hear that information. We just look at it and say, you know what, that's not the story. Especially for this person right here. This person here is something that I think he's I want to bring it up. I did my testing. I did my results. I think that we believe that this person, I want to get them a little bit bigger. I think that we think that this person walks on water. Some people don't want to hear nothing that's out there that's said. Some people don't want to understand nothing that's out there. And the real reason why I brought them up is because I want to go to a different direction too at the same time while I'm talking right now. See, we need to understand some things. And one of the things that we need to understand is that everybody has an opinion. And as I listened to the media yesterday, I also heard them saying that, Michelle Obama's out there and she's airing her baggage in the air between her, what's going on between her and Barack Obama. I don't think that's the case. I think that she's sharing information about with you about the livelihood that she lived. She stayed in the White House 8 years. And I listen to people try to destroy what she's trying to say in the media, but what she's trying to share with you is it wasn't all that it was cut out to be. It was times that she had to make decisions that she didn't want to be a part of. It was times that her and her daughter just wanted to be by themselves and they couldn't do it. She's not out there putting out as they say, a podcast that's talking about her and Barack. She has feelings too, and she wasn't the president. She supported her husband being president, but she wasn't the president. And too many times we allow ourselves to get caught up in that, and then we allow national media to influence our mind. And as they influence our mind, we don't want to never just give a person credit for just being themselves. And she doesn't have to do that podcast. She could ride off into the sunset. But I think that too many times we don't allow people to be themselves. Too many times when they telling us the truth, we can't handle it as people, because we want to see this grand thing that's out there. We want to see that position. You lucky because not that many people get it. Yeah, you can follow your husband and consider a path of being a blessing. But what if it's not a blessing to her? And I don't want to talk about a podcast. Let's just get into this video. The reason why we're here. Sometimes when we hear a different perspective on the presidents that's been here, That's what this thing is about. I saw a video out there that I would like to share with you and kind of break down some stuff, because most people, I say most, not all, will not pause at a video or anything that has this man's face on it, especially if it sheds a negative light on him. And sometimes that's where you get your best information, by knowing both sides of the story. And that's what I hope that we do here. We share both sides of the story. That's one of the things that we do as hosts on Tuesday nights, is Fire and Glass, myself and AF Riggins. We try to share information so you can go make your own decision. This is one of those days where we're going to share I'm going to share some information. I'm going to kind of break it down. You see these talking head videos. I'm going to try to do mine the same way, where I kind of cut in every once in a while and just kind of let the video play. So I'm going to add it to the stage right now, and I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did, because it gives you, it lets you know that not all people that are running this country have your best interests at heart, and also that they have some problems too. They have some problems too. But what I think, what I'm gonna tell you about is I'm going into this, and please just open up your ears and open up your eyes and learn something. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking. So here we go. We're gonna get into this.
It's not all they're known for. There were a number of questionable things about Barack Obama's presidency. In his first year in office, he was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize, presumably in anticipation of him making moves to undo some of the more aggressive policies of his predecessor. However, Obama would go on to authorize nearly 600 drone strikes that killed almost 4,000 people during his time in office, way more than George W. Bush had approved.
Simply put, these strikes have saved lives.
One such strike hit a funeral in Pakistan, causing the deaths of 41 civilians.
Right there, I want you to listen to what, now, we can't disagree with that, right? That's some good information. That's something that we have to go along with. He put it out there, and he said that he saved some people, and he did some things to try to make it go a little bit further. And like I said, when you break down these tapes like this, it shows you a different perspective. But I want you to continue to listen, because what happens next, I'm going to let you listen to it for yourself.
He also authorized drone strikes against medical personnel and other first responders to keep them from helping any survivors from a previous drone strike. Attacks against medical personnel are against the Geneva Conventions, arguably making Obama a war criminal. His overall record on human rights was generally poor as well, as he never closed the military prison at Guantanamo Bay despite promises to do so, and he did nothing to stop CIA torture programs. He expanded surveillance systems instituted by the previous administration, and his ill-advised response to atrocities in Syria caused many to feel that the hope for improved foreign relations would go unfulfilled. It's no secret that Kennedy...
Before we get into JF Kennedy, did you hear what you say? It was people going to help the people that had maybe survived, whether it was kids, wives, or whatever. He was so determined to do that those were innocent people coming to help other people that he bombed to keep them from getting there. So everybody's not innocent. Everybody that we see has a bad side to him. It's just not bad as the man that's in office right now. And if he did something like this, we'll hold him to the utmost accountability. And I'm not defending anything, but that was bad. That's no different than what's going on in Gaza right now, and you holding Israel accountable. But nobody wants to talk about this, and that's the thing about it. I say that you take people and you put them in positions, but they have to make decisions, and we have to. Sometimes we don't find out about them till later, but sometimes the decisions that they made wasn't so good. So I'm gonna go on. I'm not leaving anybody out. I'm gonna go through this whole tape, but I just need you to know that, because, like I say, some people, when you hear about that particular person, they just stick their head in the mud. So I'm gonna continue going down this path. Here's JFK.
He had a way with the ladies, and he engaged in a wide range of affairs, including with a 19-year-old intern, a friend of his wife, secretaries, actresses, and expensive sex workers. Of course, his most famous paramour is alleged to have been Marilyn Monroe, but there's no evidence the two actually slept together. That said, Kennedy's wife Jackie was fully aware of his extracurricular activities, but knew it was just something she would have to deal with. To keep the public out of the loop, however, Kennedy used the Secret Service to keep reporters out of his personal business, sometimes even with physical violence. Having grown up in a house full of brothers, Kennedy also exhibited a number of other hypermasculine traits, including being extremely competitive and often controlling in his relationships with others. Franklin Delano.
The reason why the real reason why I'm doing this video is because a lot of people wouldn't pay attention to the original source of this video because they figured that it's taken away, and especially when he started with Barack Obama off the front end. But if you don't look at the whole video, if you don't pay attention to what's going on in the world, you get confused because they'll tell you one side of the story, and then when you hear the other side of the story, you get combative or you get defensive, and you don't want to hear that part. But I'm just sharing thoughts with you. And as we always say, I want you to make your own decisions. I done got here too many times in this media, and people have said, well, Ron, you putting your own thoughts into it. Well, I'm gonna start doing videos like this, and I'm gonna start helping you understand, because when I look at media, I try to go through and get my mind in perspective of it could happen, or it could be a possibility of something going on, and we have a past track record of things that have gone on. But if you go in there and your mind is not open, and you narrow-minded, and you go with the mainstream media and they feed you a bunch of nonsense, that's how we got here today. Because we listened to a bunch of stuff that wasn't true. And now we questioning with the sources and everything that's coming out about it. I think it's another book coming out. But anyway, I said I wasn't gonna go there. I'm trying to keep my word, because the truth is the truth when you put it out there.
Roosevelt is one of America's most respected presidents, primarily because of his leadership in shepherding the U.S. through the Great Depression and most of World War II. However, despite his lengthy list of accomplishments, Roosevelt had a somewhat troubled personal life. FDR had a long-standing affair with his wife's social secretary, Lucy Mercer, which began well before his presidency and lasted until his death in 1945. When Eleanor Roosevelt found out about the affair, it strained their marriage. They stayed together for political reasons, though Eleanor had at least one extramarital relationship with another woman. Probably one of the biggest controversies from FDR's presidency was the forced internment of nearly 120,000 Japanese.
That was important, but the next part is also. Did you hear what he said? The wife had an affair with another woman, and he I'm just telling you, this is strange, but most people wouldn't have took the time to listen to this. I'm glad that I did it. But I want to share with my people, with the people that listen to me, because I want them to be educated. This is educational. This is just stuff that you need to know when we're out there. So when you hear it on the news, you can form your own opinion.
Japanese Americans during World War II, out of fear that they were collaborating with the Japanese army. Even FDR's wife urged him to rethink this cruel policy, but she couldn't change his mind. As the first president of the United States, George Washington has earned immense respect, not only for his personal qualities, but also for the precedents he established for the office. The nation's capital is named after him, and there's a giant obelisk to remind you of how cool he was. But despite all this, he wasn't exactly perfect. For one thing, George Washington enslaved people, as did many of the founding fathers. It might be easy to dismiss this by saying every rich white guy at the time was an enslaver, but Washington's successor John Adams wasn't, and openly reproached his contemporaries who were, calling enslavement evil. Although
I'm gonna go back and do some research on John Adams. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna talk with As a matter of fact, I'm gonna talk with Pastor Regan, since he's a researcher. I want to find out more about John Adams, since he was one of the first ones that spoke up against slavery in this time during George Washington's time. But I think you're about to get another surprise that you wouldn't have found out unless you listened to what I'm sharing with you right now, because you probably wouldn't have took the time to understand. And at one time in my life, I was the same way. Listen to this next part.
It is true that Washington was the only enslaving president to free his enslaved people in his will. His wife kept hers. And also, there's a decent chance Washington impregnated an enslaved woman. Furthermore, Washington's goals to establish the American nation on Native American land typically superseded any attempt at doing right by the Native American tribes who owned that land. If tribes refused his offers to purchase land, he would send troops to drive them off violently, to the extent that the Iroquois referred to him as the town destroyer. Theodore Roosevelt might have made
Before we go there, I hope y'all listen to some of the stuff that was said during Washington. He wasn't as great as they make him out to be. I think that we have a tendency after they get out of office or after they leave, we want to build them up as bigger people than what they were. I mean, those Indians had just as much right to their property as he did, but when they wouldn't negotiate with him, he kept on pushing them. He kept on pushing them forward and pushing them further away because they wouldn't just give in to this thing. And it sounds familiar because that's what's happening around the world in most cases. Think about it. Israel is the same way. But we can't point the finger at Israel for going into Gaza if we got presidents that did, our very first president did what he did. Ew, excuse me on the air. I'm still human. I apologize. Please accept my apology. I don't know what, it must have been something that I did. But please don't get off the point here. And again, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. I just couldn't do anything other than that. And remember, I'm doing this for information only. So I apologize. I'm sorry. Theodore Roosevelt, I think a lot of y'all hear all the good stories about what Theodore Roosevelt did during his time. I think you're going to be shocked at some of the stuff that you hear right now.
A good action hero. He spent time as a cowboy, an outdoorsman, a hunter, and a leader of a cavalry outfit called the Rough Riders. And if that wasn't enough, he survived a bullet to the chest.
I do not care a rap for being shot. It is a trade risk.
He's also respected as a president because of his devotion to the pursuit of progressive ideals, such as economic and social justice for all Americans. But despite his progressive politics, Roosevelt had a dark side. Roosevelt's approach to foreign policy was based on a firmly held belief in a racial hierarchy, with white people at the top. Many of the interventionist and even imperialist actions taken under the Roosevelt administration were based on the idea that territories such as Guam and the Philippines would be better off under the governance of white Americans. Because Roosevelt believed in the superiority of the white race, he was also an ardent supporter of the now repugnant eugenics movement, promoting the idea of only allowing people with desirable characteristics to reproduce, while those deemed inferior would be sterilized.
So he was going to kill people that look like us. He was going to kill people that look like us. And if he couldn't kill you, what he was going to do is sterilize you where you couldn't reproduce. Now, you think that we're talking about Hitler or somebody else in a whole different world. You would actually think that after hearing this. And it's right here, our presidents. And that's the reason why when I heard this and I listened to it twice, 3 times, I want to make sure that my public heard, that the people that listen to me, that take the time to listen to me, that they're educated. That they're educated. Don't fall for the okie doke, as we say in the neighborhood. I'm gonna continue this.
Eugenics was tragically a fairly popular idea at the time, but it certainly doesn't sound like the square deal that Roosevelt famously promised all Americans. As a scholar of considerable intelligence, Jefferson wrote doctrines and statutes that helped determine what American ideals.
You know, President Obama quoted Thomas Jefferson a lot. A lot of people in the public media quote Thomas Jefferson. But as you're about to learn, it's another side to every story that's out there.
Of freedom would be. He is, of course, most known for writing the Declaration of Independence, in which he famously declared that all men are created equal. However, despite the revolutionary idealism of these words,
before we go any further, that Declaration of Independence wasn't for us. People that look like me, if you got brown skin color, other than the color that you see in that picture of Thomas Jefferson, it wasn't written for you. So don't fool yourself and think that it was. It's too much information out there for you to go out there and find out that it wasn't written for you. It wasn't written for people like us, because they had a plan. They had a plan. I'm just play it.
Jefferson was an enslaver, and unlike Washington, Jefferson never made an effort to free those enslaved by him. Over the course of his lifetime, Jefferson enslaved over 600 people, with as many as 140 at any one time. Thomas Jefferson also had at least 6 children by an enslaved woman named Sally Hemings, and in such a relationship, it is impossible for the less powerful person to truly consent. Furthermore, Jefferson is known to have lied and bribed people to try to keep this relationship a secret. Harry Truman inherited the presidency when Franklin Roosevelt died during his...
Have you seen a common goal of early whites in America, that prominent whites in America? They all had one thing in common. Each one of them had a person that looked like us. If we were so bad, if things were so bad, why would you go out there and lay or mate with a person and have kids with them and everything else if it was so bad? I don't understand that, and I probably never will, and I probably never will be able to get to a point of how. But if something's real bad, if you got a older foul taste or something like that, you don't go back to it. They went back multiple times. So it must have been something there. I'm going to go on to Harry Truman.
4th term, and with it came the responsibility of guiding America through the end of World War II. At the time he left office, Truman was extremely unpopular, but after a while, his star began to rise. He became known for his foreign policy, sense of personal responsibility, and everyman persona. He was also responsible for one of the first major steps toward racial equality by desegregating the military in 1948. This executive order came as a surprise to many civil rights leaders, because Truman was known to have a dim view of black.
This is one of them things, them aha moments where you should be saying to yourself, why did he do it? He did it because he needed more bodies other than whites to die out there. He didn't do it because of any other reason. If you stop, you know who was out there dying on the front lines before? And as that fight got progressively worse, they needed some more bodies to go fall down. That's all it was. Don't fool yourself.
Black Americans in his personal life, using slurs and telling racist jokes. His distaste for the civil rights movement became even more clear in the decades after his presidency, notably claiming that civil rights protests such as sit-ins were operations by communists. He opposed interracial marriage and criticized Martin Luther King, who asked Truman to apologize for his defamatory remarks and apparently received no reply. On a more personal level, Truman was often petty and juvenile. He had a contentious relationship with General Douglas MacArthur and somewhat famously called the general dumb after firing him. He also threatened to beat up a music critic who gave his daughter singing a...
Who does that sound like? Calling people dumb? What we're going through now in America is not anything new. And if you stick your head in the ground and don't want to hear the truth about everybody, this is how we got here. We got here because people don't read, they don't go back and research, and they don't listen to what normal people are trying to tell them, that we haven't been this great nation of great leaders. We made up stuff as they went along. We made up stuff as they got out of the office. We continue to do that today. That's why it's so important. Let me get into this importance.
Bad review, and while still contested, to date he is the only world leader who carried out a nuclear strike on civilian targets, killing almost 250,000 Japanese civilians. Even before he was president, Dwight D. Eisenhower was known for his military career, in which he served as the Allied commander in World War II and planned the invasion of Normandy on D-Day. He's also lauded for his record on civil rights and actions to help desegregate American schools.
Compulsory school segregation laws are unconstitutional.
However, Eisenhower had a legendary temper, getting angry at even small things. He was known as the terrible-tempered Mr. Bang among his staff for his tendency to blow up at even the littlest thing. He was aware of this problem, though, and had been since childhood. He took steps to try to curb his temper, like writing down the names of people who upset him and putting them in a drawer. Despite such measures, he would scream at anyone who mentioned Joseph McCarthy, and ordered squirrels shots when they dug holes on his putting green. Nobody is debating that Abraham Lincoln left a legacy.
See? Crazy, but true. Crazy, but true. And that's the thing that We need to understand these people do stuff, and we elect them into office, and this is past elections, but seems like from everything that I've shown you so far, you could pull one trait out of all of them and relate it back to who? One trait out of all of them and relate it back to what's currently in position in the White House right now. And I'm going to go to Abraham Lincoln because I know my time is growing short on here.
However, despite the fact that he's known for ending slavery in the U.S., in recent years, Lincoln's actual views toward black people and Native Americans have become an increasingly hot topic. It's known that in his personal life, Lincoln used racial slurs and told racist jokes, and he also attended notoriously racist minstrel shows. In his famous debates with Stephen Douglas, he said that white people are superior to other races, and Lincoln initially wanted freed enslaved people to be sent back to Africa to colonize Liberia, rather than...
Does that sound like the Abraham Lincoln that you knew? He wanted to send you back to Africa because he didn't want you to integrate the country that they had just taken from the Indians. So they tried to annihilate the Indians, push them far away as they possibly could, but they was going to send us back. Do you know how many people they would have lost making that trip back across that ocean? Because they had got here and we wasn't as rough as we was when we came across that ocean on that slave ship. Do you know how many people would have made it? And how far they would have got if times got rough, and who was the cargo that they was going to dump? But we look up to this man called him Abraham Lincoln. He freed the slaves. Let's go a little bit further.
integrate into American society. It's important to note that Lincoln's views on race evolved over time, and it was in fact his support of voting rights for some black men that pushed his assassin John Wilkes Booth over the edge. Lyndon B. Johnson became president after John F. Kennedy.
You heard it. You heard it, and you heard it clearly. The guy got killed because he had evolved from where he was. And because he was going to let a few blacks vote, he got killed in I ain't never heard that story. Only thing I heard was the great Abraham Lincoln. Never heard the reason why they originally killed him. So hopefully you got educated. Let's continue because I don't want to lose my audience when I'm going through this.
Kennedy was assassinated, but he had a long political career beforehand and managed to accomplish quite a bit during his time in the White House. That said, Johnson was famously a brash and crude individual. Johnson was quite proud of his own Johnson, which he not only nicknamed Jumbo, but also flopped out freely whether others wanted to see it or not. He was also known to use graphic language in public and political situations in a way that's not common for presidents. While foul language might not be a big deal for some, Johnson was also said to be cruel and vicious in his pursuit of grandeur for himself. He considered fellow Democrats who opposed his policies on Vietnam to be traitors and possibly under communist influence. Johnson was also a great lover of women and carried out an affair with a woman named Alice Glass for decades. Johnson's wife Lady Bird knew about Glass and Johnson's other affairs, but Johnson callously disregarded how his wife might feel about them, instead bragging that he'd slept with even more women than JFK.
I want y'all to see this because this is important. What I've been talking about is a video. This is from the grunge. And the name kind of steers you in the wrong direction and all that. And you probably would have never gave this opportunity. But the information that they put out makes you think. It invokes thought. It helps you understand that maybe everybody doesn't have the narrative that's put out in the media is not the same narrative in which everybody's living. What I wanted to do with this was invoke thought, give you a chance to go out and do your own thing, give you a chance to understand what it takes to research. And if you hear something in the mainstream media, don't just fall for it. Don't ever just fall for it. Don't ever just say, well, I saw it with my own eyes. Well, it may not be true. It may not be true. Because if you ever notice, even during the shootings, suspect shot, suspect this, and suspect that, or in the earlier years when I used to look at the media, they used to put a name on it. It wasn't suspect, it was black. But they don't tell the reason why or they don't tell how they got shot. And maybe I'm stepping out of my position, but if a person got a knife and you're on the police force and that person's 15 or 10 feet away from you, what's wrong with going to get in your car and maybe give them some mental help or something like that? What's wrong with that? Or is this world so cruel that we just got to shoot a person dead because they got a knife? I want you to come home too. I want you to use common sense when you go out there. And that's not what, I always say that I jump around a lot, but if it comes to my mind, I'm going to share it with you, just like this video. I didn't share this video with you to tell you that that Trump is this great person in office. Trump, and you compare it to where we came from. I shared this video with you so maybe next time when you see something out there, you'll look at it. You'll look at it. Not just take it as a negative. Not just take it as a negative. When you see his face, and then it gets to a point where you start taking your perspective and you don't want to hear anything else after you see anything negative, you might miss something that's educational. They this thing kind of told us about a fight that as black people we have went through. See, some people things happen for a period of time, but as blacks, if you go throughout this whole process, we had presidents that did stuff to us over years, not just now, but they've been doing it to us for years. But here's we were resilient enough of a people to survive. And ever since then, everybody has taken on our cause or taken us on as black people, not in a perspective that we may think, but in a perspective of saying, you know what? They did this to blacks. What do you think they're going to do to us? So in other words, they use us as a jump off to whatever discrimination that they was using to get attention. And then once they got the attention, they didn't support the cause no more. That's crazy. Because if you go back in history, you'll see that they use black people to make their points in many of those situations. And once their point or their agendas was brought to the forefront, they never went back and said, you know what? I'm going to go back and help those blacks. I'm going to go back and show them that they meant something to my cause. And that's where we got to get. And we need to go there somehow. And there's some pretty prominent people out there that can use us and build up their fight. Their fight. I'm going to leave you with this because I'm not going to stay out here that long. I don't want to bore you with my thoughts because I go off another path and then I won't get, my message won't translate because I done jumped into something else. So I just want to say, and I'm going to say it with all my heart and all my might. Thank God that he had his hands on us through all of the stuff that we just got through seeing. We wasn't supposed to be here. We were supposed to be transported back out of here. We were supposed to be hung up on trees. We were supposed to be saying, yes, sir, and yes, master. We were supposed to be doing all this stuff right now because if the people that was in control, that's what they would have been expecting from us. So if we didn't have a God, I'm going to tell you, think about how far we done came. Think about everything that you just heard. And you too will adopt this phrase when things are bad out there. Thank God, thank God, thank God. Woo! We done came through some stuff. I want to invite each and every one of y'all to join us on Tuesday nights as we go through and we have a show. We have varied opinions. We have Byron Glass. We have Pastor A.F. Riggins. And we go through, we have a dialogue, but it's more than just this talking head that's in front of you right now. So I want you to come on. And if you have any comments, I want you to make them in the comment section. I didn't I didn't have any comments on this one yet, but I didn't expect it to be because this is done on a Saturday when people are cutting grass, doing what they do, and I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem cutting grass and moving around. So I can show this at any time. So thank you. I'm gonna say it again. I should have got it here when I said it the first time. But thank you for listening. And if you get a chance and you want to hear more about our upcoming shows or when we're doing the show, you don't have to be available at the time. You can go back and listen to them. Please just go out and subscribe on YouTube. Go out and subscribe on YouTube, because that'll give you a chance to come in. If you have a comment that didn't make it on the air or something that you want to dispute in which I put out, go to YouTube and make your comments. I'm gonna get out of here. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your weekend. I plan on getting out there and enjoying mine. Continue to stay informed. Byron Glass, Pastor A.F. Riggins, I'm out here trying to make this happen. Y'all take care. Oh, trust me, they do this on a volunteer basis. So they have another life that they're leading out there. I would tell you more about mine, but I'm gonna have to chill on that for a minute. But anyway, good night, good day, good afternoon. Hope you enjoyed the show. Bye.